Good afternoon and welcome to our second webinar in the series, Future Focused Farmer series. Last month we spoke about tax planning for the 2021 year and how it's an interesting year in that space. This week we are talking about taking farm bookkeeping into the future, specifically leveraging cloud. Next month we're going to be looking into succession planning. All these sessions will be recorded, so if you've missed today's session, we'll be able to circle back, or if you've missed last month's or we'll be busy in June, we can revisit the succession planning issues that we're going to talk about. Okay, so today it's going to be quite hands-on. We're going to have quite a diverse range of attendees and people viewing the video afterwards. So we're going to run right through some processes with live demos of Hubdock, Xero, and we're also going to have Jimmy from Figured join us for just a live demonstration of how Figured works and how it links in with your Xero and can help you with your planning, forecasting and cash flow within your farming business. So I'm Brad Loftus. I'm a director in the Adelaide office at RSM. So I've been a partner of the firm for several years now, and with RSM for 11 years. So I've got a specialisation in the agri space. Started helping clients in an advisory and tax capacity when I was wet behind the ears 20 years ago as a graduate accountant, and now it's a key part of my practice. And yeah, love helping business owners out, especially those working from farms. So a little bit about RSM. So we are almost 100 years old. So next year we've got our centenary. We've started in WA, working in the regions, just getting out to farms, visiting, getting the feet under the kitchen table and helping people grow their farms, manage their tax and manage their affairs, business relationships, banking relationships, etc. Very proud history in that agri space in the regions. So just a little disclaimer before we get started. Obviously, we're going to talk about these products today. This disclaimer just points out that this is all general, and before jumping in with 2 feet, it's always a good idea just to get tailored advice. So today's agenda, as I mentioned, we've got 3 parts to it. We're going to first start off with Hubdock. Hubdock was purchased by Xero about a little over a year ago, and it's a under-leveraged part of the Xero platform that I think it's key to understand that for a lot of Xero users, they've got access to it, and if you're not utilising it, you will probably be spending more time doing your books and organising your life than you probably need to. I'm going to run through the foundations of Xero. So some of you on the call are probably into Xero already and have been using it for some time, but it's always good to check in on features, because once you get into a routine of your bookkeeping or just anything in business, sometimes you make a decision early on not to investigate something, and then you keep just doing what you know. So checking in on all of the features is part of what today's all about, not only for those that have never seen Xero in action, but you might actually pick something up if you're already using Xero. And then for the last half, I'm going to hand over to Jimmy from Figured. He's going to demonstrate what Figured is designed to do, jump into a live file and show how you can do forecast for cash flow purposes, and unlock Figured, because what we're finding is that farmers are now managing their own grain sales a lot, making decisions around when to buy, when to sell their grain, storing it on farm or otherwise. And so a forecast doesn't need to just be a financial year. You might be, if you have to make a decision to hold grain for an extra year after harvest, you want to know how that harvest performed over the 2 or 3 years that that cycle lasted for. And so Figured has some great cropping planning tools which can help you track that over time. So that's the agenda. Before we start off, an important question that we get asked, because there's a lot of farming specific software available. And so people go, when you bring up the topic of Xero, they ask, well, is Xero designed for farmers? Because they know Phoenix, they know Agrimaster, they know what they've been using. And so there's a lot of trepidation to step outside of that farming specific software. The short answer to this question is no, Xero isn't designed for farmers. But the reason why we like it and we're encouraging people to investigate Xero as an option is it's our view that Xero plays well with the other kids in the sandpit. So Xero is a business platform. It helps you manage your business, but it's got what we call APIs, and they're open APIs. And an API is a part of the software that a provider shares with other software providers. And by linking these APIs across different platforms, it allows you to plug in different components. So Hubdock's a good example of where the APIs are shared and information can be shared between Hubdock and Xero. And likewise with Figured. So if you choose to make an investment in Xero today, you can expand to your needs and plug other apps into Xero. That's not so much the case with desktop software or historical software. So it's versatile, it plays well with the other kids in the sandpit, being Figured and Hubdock, for example, today. So there they are. All right, so we're going to get straight into it. I'm going to move across to Hubdock in a sec. So it is a Xero product now. When it first was released onto the market, it wasn't. The whole point of using Hubdock is to save you time by automating data entry. You can sync your invoicing that you receive from suppliers, for example, into Xero. You can get the suite to read those invoices and start preparing the coding for you. And then it also becomes a bit of a document storage system for you as well. So you don't need to have piles of paper lying around your farm office. So I'm just going to jump across to Hubdock now. With any luck, look at this, I've been logged out. So just bear with me for a second. So when you log into Hubdock, I'm just going to go into a sample file that we're using for this purpose. So what are we in today is just 2 demonstration files. So they will look a little bit generic, but it's mainly just to show the process. So this interface that we've got here is the Hubdock interface. Now, Hubdock, as I said, is really a document storage, and it uses what we call optical character recognition, or OCR technologies, to read those documents and help do some of the data entry for you. You can do it in 2 methods. The first way is they've actually got relationships with particular suppliers. So I've just brought the list of suppliers up here. Some common ones that we might see in Australia would be Telstra. You've got Energy Australia there, Caltex. So if you've got an account with a vendor, I won't log in all the way, but you might say be with Telstra. You can put the login for your business Telstra account into Hubdock, and every time you get an account from Telstra, it'll download it into Hubdock, and it'll be there ready for you to process into Xero or pay. So there's a very large listing there of suppliers that you can work through. There's a lot of American-based ones, but as time goes on, there's more and more Australian providers. So that's the first option, adding an account with a significant supplier. There's also Landmark and Elders that you can link the account for. The other option, and it's not going to be the case for a lot of your suppliers, you'll have a lot of local small businesses, is to drop your documents into Hubdock. So there's several ways you can go about this. You can browse and find it on your computer. So you just need to save the document into a folder somewhere. If you get your document via an email, you could drag and drop. You can forward the email that has the attachment to your own unique Hubdock email address, which I've got here, or you can download the Hubdock app, take a photo of a receipt, and that'll automatically sync into here. So what I'm going to do today is demonstrate just the drag and drop. The methodology is just the same. They're just 4 ways you can deliver the document into the system. So while I chat, it's uploaded this Water Corporation bill here. I'll just move this across to the side. You can see here, it's got a little clock because it's going through the process of reading that document. And now it's finished that. While I do that, I could drop other invoices in here and it will start to process them for us. So I'm going to just jump across to this one. So this is what I've just dropped in, the PDF. So it's just a mock-up of a Water Corporation invoice. So you can see here, it's pretty standard. We've got our date, invoice number, amount, etc. And you can see over on the side here, while it was doing the clock and doing the reading before it was ready for review, it was trying to pick up all the information it could. So you can see here on the right, I've got the date from the invoice. I've got the invoice number. It's tried to pick out a supplier for us. And in the end, so we can, if we don't have the supplier in the system, we can nominate it. We could put a due date in there. It doesn't seem to pick that one up. So we would just say, I want to pay that by the 31st. It's picked up the amount from the invoice and it's a GST-free expense. Yes, it is, because there's no GST on my water rates. If that was incorrect, I could just take it, put GST and it would pull the amount out, but it was right in this case. And then it asks you to go, well, what's our destination? We're going to push this through to Xero. So this is where you actually, invoice by invoice or supplier by supplier, you're going to teach Hubdock what you want to be done with this particular invoice. So when you save configuration, it'll do this the next time we drop in the Water Corp invoice. So I want you to treat this as a purchase. If you've already paid it, it might just be a spend money. I want you to either keep this in draft for me to look at in Xero. We'll go through what this means later on. You can approve, put it waiting for someone's approval if you need to. An example here would be if you get an invoice for the delivery of a piece of machinery or a repair, you may not want to pay that invoice until the other person in your business, it might be 2 brothers in a farming partnership or a husband and wife team. You want to just get the okay that, yes, that repair was done to spec. We're happy to pay that invoice. So you'd make it awaiting approval to be approved in Xero later on, or just awaiting payment. In this case, we'll just keep it as a draft. This contact here is my Xero contact. So that's how it will be filed in Xero. We will choose rates and taxes. So I just had to change that. It guessed that it was rent. What you can also do is choose, in this case, it's a region, but you might be set up this tag as a different part of your business, maybe part of the cropping, or it could be part of the livestock part of the business, so you can get specific about your Xero coding. So that's how it, if, as I mentioned earlier, you save your configuration and it'll be ready next time you drop an invoice like this, the coding will be done. So I hit publish now, and now that's going to be published to Xero. So that should be there waiting for us in just a second when we jump across to Xero to see the next part. The great thing is now we can search, that's got a tick. This becomes our filing cabinet. So it'll keep the records of all the Water Corporation documents. You can see we've got some here from previous examples we've saved in. Here's an example of a tax receipt that's been put through and coded. So you can view them by supplier, etc. So, and that's about Hubdock. That's what it's designed to do and make your life easier in Xero. So coming back to my slides here, we've gone through there, we're syncing bills, we're creating rules, we're reducing the amount of typing we have to do, and we're saving the source documents into Xero. All right, so now I'm going to move across to Xero and just step you through the features here. We're going to look at bank feeds. We're going to look at what happened with that invoice from Hubdock. You can do your BASs straight from Xero and a few other features there. So I'm just going to step across into my Xero file for you now. So again, this is just a demo company. When you sync your Hubdock file with your Xero file, you can just get back to it by coming into this drop-down menu on the right. One thing I didn't mention, and we'll go through the pricing towards the end of today, is if you've got a starter or standard or above file with Xero, you actually get Hubdock for free because it is a Xero product. So if you're not using it, it's worthwhile taking a look. So Xero is basically an accounting platform. It helps you manage your banking, your invoicing out, and invoicing received from your suppliers, and then also your reporting. So your profit and loss, your balance sheet, helps you with your tax reporting, etc. I'm starting here on the dashboard for a particular reason. A lot of people historically just use their farming cash book as exactly that, a cash book. They don't integrate the management of what I owe people and what people owe me. The great thing about the Xero dashboard is, yes, you get to keep an eye on what's happening in your bank account, but if you're processing your invoices right, you can keep a track of who owes you money and what you owe other people. So you're not just running your business by the seat of your pants, by the bank balance. And you can quickly come in here, take stock and say, well, my bank balance says I'm in overdraft by $4,000, but who owes me money? Okay, well, I've got here $25,000 worth of invoices outstanding. So if I collect them, I'll have $20,000 in the bank. Oh, but I owe $10,000. So, all right, if I can get our cash flow moving, I'll have $10,000 in the bank once I collect everything and settle the bills. So really good just to have that dashboard all in one place. So what happened with that invoice from the Water Corp that we brought in? So I'm going to go down here under the business menu down to bills to pay. So now I nominated that. You'll recall that I nominated that just to come into Xero as a draft. And here it is, Water Corporation. It's sitting there waiting for us to deal with. So it hasn't actually come in and hit the profit and loss yet. It's waiting for me to deal with it in Xero. You'll recall that I could have marked it as awaiting approval or awaiting payment, at which point it would have treated it slightly differently. Great thing about Xero is I can just show you right now that this is what we just processed in Hubdock. You can see that this was created today and the file was attached today, all coming over from Hubdock. So this has all happened live. So you just go through your process here, check the due date, check the reference. We've got the PDF attached to this transaction. I've made sure that there's no GST and it's going to go to my rates and taxes. I can either approve that full stop, or I can come over here and save and submit for approval. That's the situation I was talking about earlier. If you've got that business partner that needs to double check that the repair was done right or the fence materials were delivered as asked, etc. So in this case, we're going to save and submit for approval. And then it just moves across into this next column and it's sitting there. We can then mark this to approve and it'll get added to the dashboard of those invoices that we owe that we were looking at previously. Okay, so coming back out to our dashboard, this is our Xero veterans will be well aware of this feature. The great thing that we appreciate about Xero, and a lot of other platforms do it too now, is that you have bank feeds. So your transactions are going to come through each day, sometimes even multiple times a day. So you connect your Xero file to the bank, and Xero will have a feed coming from the bank of all your transactions. And then it's up to you to tell Xero what you need to be done with it. Great thing here is it does a little bit of investigating in the background for you. You can see this green box here, it's under the match feature. So we've got a payment going out and it's found an invoice exactly to that amount. So if I come back to business, bills to pay, and I'm going to open that in a different tab, just so we can flick easily between the two. If I come down here, we are going to find the invoice. Which, what was it? It was for Truxton Property Management. Trigger awaiting payment. With any luck, it should be there. What do they say? The danger of a live demonstration. Here we go, Truxton Property Management. It's got a due date of the 18th of May. It looks like it's, because it's been found, it's been paid. So we can go, yeah, you're right. Okay, that has been matched. The other options you have here is you can create a rule for what you want to happen to this payment to the smart agency. Or if it's a bank transfer, you mark it as such. Or there's an example here of if you don't know what it is, you can mark it to discuss with, say, your business partner or advisor later on. So if you just, the great thing is you don't have to sit down with a bank statement next to you and type everything in. It's all there ready to go. Moving on, people often ask, can you make payments from Xero? The short answer is yes. The long answer is it depends on which bank you're with. What everyone can do is coming into this awaiting payments section, you can create what we call a batch payment. And so if you've got your internet banking set up to accept what we call ABA files, you can choose your payments to, that you want to pay today. It could be not that one because I've just got to confirm that we actually want to pay that one. Make a batch payment. It says you've selected 5 bills to pay. Would you like to do that? And then it will prepare what we call a batch payment. We're going to pay it from this account. We're going to create a batch payment. We're going to review the bills. And what it has noticed here that for Capital Cabco, we've gone to the effort of putting our suppliers' bank details in. If that's a good thing to do in the contact for each and every one of your suppliers to make this process easier. But in this case, because we haven't been organised, we're going to have to put in the bank details for each of these suppliers. So again, it's another case of a stitch in time, saves 9. But then what you can do is continue to the payment summary. That will give you, I won't go through it today because we're in a demo file, but you can prepare a batch payment for your payment run, upload that into your internet banking and you're away. With certain banks, for a fee, you can actually push, Xero will push those payment authorities and processes through to your bank. All right, there's also a Xero to Xero connection, which I'll just briefly touch on. Basically, if you know that some of your neighbours or suppliers use Xero as well, you can get their Xero talking to your Xero, which means that you can invoice almost instantly, which is pretty special. So where you link your network key and you can send your network key to, say, your neighbour, just say they needed to buy a certain amount of grain off you to fulfill an order that they had. You can just put their email address in here. They will get this key, attach it to your name in their Xero, and then that means that when you generate that invoice going forward, they'll get it instantly. You don't have to worry about sending it on the email, it not making it into their payment system. It'll be there waiting for them in bills awaiting payment, as I demonstrated earlier. Next, activity statements are easy. And if you link your Xero to the ATO, you can prepare your activity statements from Xero. It's a pretty simple process once set up. You just need to select your period. So we'll just scroll down to the latest BAS period. So it might have been for March. It starts to aggregate all your information. You've got your GST on sales. If you're employing people, I don't have this set up with the payroll at the moment. You can enter all your data that you need to. You can add fuel tax credits as you need, and then you can finalize and lodge through with the ATO. It means less paperwork. You don't have to mess around and transfer data onto the online services portal with the ATO. And then the last thing, and this comes down to, it's a reporting function. When you set up your Xero file, you can set up different enterprises, much like you can in other software systems. So we're going to run a quick profit and loss here. And this comes down to having the discipline when you are entering transactions to tag it in certain ways. So in this example, it's just a demo file. We've got regions geographically. You could have in your file, say, wheat, barley, sheep, and then as you pay invoices and collect and send invoices, you just need to tag those accordingly. As you can see, there's quite a few unassigned invoices here. You can fix that as you go if you forget to tag one. And that's as simple as going into the transaction. This one, we could go through and attach each of these to the three regions that you just saw. It's just a matter of going in, and for you, it may not be region, it'll just be farm enterprise would be this one, this thing here. You just choose the enterprise that it relates to, update. Now, if we go back to our P&L, you'll be able to see if we refresh. We've allocated that cleaning expense. That used to be $465. Now we've got that where it needed to be. We can start looking at the profitability of the different parts of our business. So that is a very, very quick running of the features, the key features that we love in Xero. So we've gone through getting that information from Hubdock. We've got those invoices filed electronically, so we don't have paper flying around the house. We've got the cashbook with bank feeds, which reduces the amount of time where you need to enter information. You can use it if you're using Hubdock properly. You're organising your invoices and what you can choose who you want to pay and when, and enter the supplier's bank details into Xero and get organised to download an ABA file, upload that into internet banking, and then you don't have to worry about, did I enter those bank details incorrect every time you go to make a payment? We can prepare and lodge BASs direct with the ATO. We can track enterprises. As if Xero does appear to have a lot of momentum in the market. So the more people that get on Xero, you can connect Xero to Xero and speed up your invoices and hopefully speed up people paying you. What I didn't demonstrate was payroll. On the starter plan, you get access to doing payroll for one employee. Going to the standard plan, which is around $50 per month, but we'll get specific on pricing later on. You can do payroll to up to 5 people. And the great thing is that it's all STP compliant. So STP stands for single touch payroll. That's a necessity these days. We're seeing it starting to affect all of our farming clients, not just the larger ones with multiple employees. And so just to have that all in one place, you don't need a separate system to manage your payroll reporting through to the ATO. So that is that for Xero. So lastly, and for the second half of today, we're going to look at Figured. And as I mentioned, Jimmy's on the line from Figured. I'm going to hand over the reins to him. He's going to start sharing his screen and talk to us specifically about where Figured really excels in helping farming clients and demonstrate that for us. So this will help you get from the point of just having spreadsheets for budgets, or I've seen some of the other platforms in the agri space, in the budgeting arena, and yeah, look, all they really do is pull out some figures, give you a grid to fill in what might happen, and then you have to save a copy, whereas Figured it works with Xero. It syncs back and forth, and you can run scenarios, etc., quite easily. So it's a great pleasure that I hand over to you, Jimmy.
Thank you, mate. G'day, everyone. Here we are. We'll whip through this pretty quickly, but just wanted to cover off a couple of fundamentals with how Figured works initially. Like Brad said, whilst Xero is not built specifically for farming, and Xero is not necessarily built specifically for any particular type of business, we are one of the apps that utilise that API very well, and we're Xero's official farming partner and work very closely with them across the globe. So how it works is each Figured file is linked to a Xero file, and they sync automatically throughout the day, numerous times throughout the day. They're sharing data between them. It's a two-way sync, so all of the account information and so forth comes through from Xero, but also we can push invoices in as well. It's billed per farm, not per user. So a really common thing we see in a lot of the traditional software players in the market is that they bill per user. So there's a bit of a barrier to collaboration. One of the things that Figured was really founded on was a spirit of collaborating and getting everyone across the financial plan of the farm. So that means quite often we see 7, 10, 12 users, anyone that's a stakeholder or needs to contribute to the plan, needs an understanding about where they are now, can all access the data with so obviously some controls baked in there as well. We can also set up farm production year. So you'll notice on the demo farm that I'm going to take you through today, we've got the farm set up on a calendar year. You can configure this on whatever period you like, and you can run reports on whatever period you like as well. So not uncommon for our farms to analyse their profitability on something other than a financial year. Obviously, your financial statements and all that kind of stuff are done on a financial year, but when you're really looking to understand how this season went versus last, we do need to step away from the traditional July to June period quite often. We add the farm specific features that Xero is missing realistically. So what that means is cash flow budgeting. So there's some simple budgeting capabilities within Xero, but it's just a P&L budget. Most farming businesses with equipment finance, drawings, capital expenditure, all those kind of things do need quite a robust cash flow budget. With that, we also get cash flow variance reporting, which is really important. It's no point just having a budget, setting and putting it in the top drawer and not assessing how you're going against it. So we really do encourage, variance reporting against that budget and also reforecasting from the original budget as well. We track quantities. So Xero's got some very simplistic inventory capability, but it's certainly not robust enough to deal with the complexities of agriculture. So we can track quantities pertaining to livestock, so stock class including weights, and then we also track all the cropping production, used for feed, used for seed, all those kind of movements as well. With those quantities, we can obviously add an extra layer to our reporting, so we can break our reporting into per head or per hectare, per tonne, per dry sheep equivalent, all these kind of core metrics that most farmers are seeking. Extend a bit below that as well. If you're looking to capture all these kind of costs and really analyse, what your profitability from an enterprise perspective, you can use some of the features that Brad flagged before with the tracking categories in Xero. So we can pick up those kind of things and really get a very concise understanding about where you're making money and where there might be some more opportunities. We produce a market value financial position as well, super important in agri. Often, there's a lot of assets that are held off balance sheet, or the things that are in the balance sheet are in there at cost or depreciated values. So, being able to show a market value for livestock as opposed to tax, or a market value of land as opposed to a cost value from 20 years ago is really important to get an accurate understanding about where you're sitting. And the final one's just worthwhile mentioning there. We do have the ability to do this multi-enterprise or multi-farm features. So if you're a more complex operation, need to break your reports down a little bit more, maybe there are multiple locations you need to budget for separately with different farm managers or something like that, then we're certainly capable of those kind of things as well. We'll only give a pretty quick overview today of what it looks like, but the heart of our planning experience at Figured is what we call our planning grid. This is where we really do have the ability to step away from the rigidity of a financial year and plan on the basis we like. So our planning grid lives in our planning tools. What I've got here, you'll see, is a date selector up the top, which really does control what we're viewing. I can plan across multiple years simply by clicking in here, and I can plan all the way out to 2027, and I can go back historically if I want to capture that kind of data as well. Our plans in Figured are perpetual, so there's no concept of opening and closing or anything like that. If I want to plan into next year, I simply click over, all my balances carry forward, and I can go from there. All of the amounts on green on the left-hand side here, these are the actuals. So you can see here, I've got actuals set to June 2020. So I'm looking at 6 months worth of actuals, which means the remainder of the year here is all our forecast information. With the actuals, these flow in from Xero automatically. Don't need to do anything to do that. If I'm unsure about an amount, I can click on this and it will open up Xero immediately and produce a report to show us what lies underneath those there. Simplistically, most people use this as a cash flow planning tool, but because Xero is a full general ledger, we do have the ability to do profit and loss and balance sheet budgeting as well. So if you are after those kind of things, then certainly there. You can see we've broken our categories down here into some of these kind of headers. So we've got irrigation, cropping, etc. All of the accounts that you see underneath here, these are all the accounts that come through from Xero. So it's really important that we're reporting our actuals in Xero in the same way that we're building out our budgets in Figured. As you roll down the page, we can zip these kind of things up if we only want to see a single line amount. When we're building out our forecast, we can type numbers in, we can import previous year's actuals, and we'll go through in a second and look at some of the more detail we can get from a production side of things. Right down the bottom, we can obviously forecast for some of these more complex things like interest, which we can automatically calculate depending on the loan facilities you've got in there, or automatically calculate overdraft interest as well, depending on when you fall into overdraft. We can also budget for all of our drawings as well. We forecast GST in here too. So we take all the GST movements that have happened in Xero and all of the forecast GST movements that are expected on the Figured side of things, and then balance them all out and produce a pretty robust GST forecast, and also a forecast bank balance in here. You can see here we're slightly running out of money in kind of September, October, November, fallen into the red a little bit, and that's why up the top here in our interest, we're starting to see some overdrafts come in. So there's a bunch of powerful tools in there to really make the forecast as accurate as possible, but also, you're not having to, do a heap of calculations to kind of achieve it. So the core planning tools are there. It is like a big fancy spreadsheet effectively with a bunch of controls built into it. What gives Figured its farming element are what we call our trackers, and they're available under the operations menu on the side. So if I expand this out, you'll see in here we can establish our farm properties as well. So in there, we can look at what land we've got, what's the mixture between arable and non-arable land. We can account for leased properties and manage all of our property assets in here as well. Our trackers, and we have a variety of trackers depending on your business type, and realistically you can use them quite simply if you're just after capturing some basic assumptions, or you can get quite in depth in terms of tracking full gross margins down to a paddock level for crops, for example. We start with our sheep. It inherits most of the same planning functionality as our planning grid, in that we have some actuals that have occurred. These are all our livestock movements that we've seen for the 6 months from January to June. Gives us our current on hand, and then we've got some forecast movements from there. Beneath all of these, we have transactions. So they're not just livestock movements. So if I click in the sale column, for example, and the mixed lambs row, can see down the bottom, we've put in some monthly sales with what quantity we're going to sell, a weight, and we can enter that live or carcass. We can enter our price per head, per kilo, or a total, and we'll back calculate the rest. And all of these numbers in here flow up the top under our sheep category. So these forecast sales populate in there. So it's not as simple as just saying I'm going to get $75,000 worth of sheep revenue in September. In our tracker, we've actually got an assumption that lives underneath that. And if I need to update it, if I want to change that to be $160 a head, simple as changing that, tabbing across, pressing enter, and then when we refresh our planning grid, that'll be all updated as well. From a cropping perspective, we've got two approaches realistically, depending on how detailed you'd like. So we've got a simple crop tracker, which enables you to pretty much just track quantities and movements. So in here, you'll see similarly, we've got an opening quantity. We're going to harvest some goods at the end of the year. We're going to sell some, and then we're going to maybe use some for feed and some for seed. And we're just looking at this from a quantity perspective. Nice and simple way to build out a budget. If you're not looking at gross margin levels or anything like that, then you can build out a budget pretty quickly, record those assumptions, and then feed them back to bankers, stakeholders, board members, all those kind of things that you need to do as well. If you're looking for a little bit more information from a cropping perspective, we've got quite a powerful crop tracker as well, which is gross margin by season, by crop type. Can go all the way down to paddock level information as well. In here, we can really capture all of the costs that we need for a crop season, all of the income that we generate from it. And then from there, we can also record different usages as well. So we've recorded some seed, some feed, not only just the quantity movement, but actually also the contribution of this crop to other enterprises, so that we're making sure we're getting the super accurate gross margin. And in there we can capture all of our costs as well. So very powerful, quite in depth, and really give those people that want that extra little bit of information out of the data that's in Xero or the data they're already collecting. All of this information, obviously the tracker information is feeding into the planning grid and building out the basis of your budget. From there, what's really important for a lot of people is understanding where you're worth as at a point in time. We do this with our financial position tab. So it's a relatively new feature that's in Figured. I'll just change my dates a little bit. So let's run this as at this month with actuals to December. So on the financial position page here, we can, we're realistically maintaining all of our data that underpins it. So I've got our product tracker information, which is feeding in our crops value. I've got our stock on hand value coming from sheep, and we've overridden the value at a market rate. So in Xero, you can see at cost, our sheep are worth 45,000, but in Figured, they're based upon our market values that we've stored, they're worth 600,000. Down here, I've also got some assets that we've added into Figured. So I might have the farm in another trust or something like that. And I've added that one into here. We can track the revaluations of that in as well. So here's my farm. This is when we bought it, at what price, and these are the valuations that we've got. They might be historical valuations. They might even be future valuations as well. If we want to look at what we might be worth in a few years. We can revalue accounts. We can add in individual assets and those kind of things as well. So if we're purchasing assets in the future, we can add those kind of things in. All of this is also feeding into that planning grid. And the same thing with the loans as well. So we can put in all the parameters of our loans. So if I bring up this ANZ one, for example, in here, I've told it what account the loan's sitting in, where our interest goes, and what our interest rate is, and our repayment structure, whether it's interest only or fixed principal or something like that. Key in all the parameters of the loan, and then all of this feeds into our planning grid as well. So we're not just manually typing numbers in, we're actually creating the record, and then it's populating it pretty much until it's done. So great thing for things like equipment finance. I can take up an asset, buy a new Land Cruiser, put the asset in, and I can take up the loan, and then both of those things will populate our planning grid, everything going to the right place with principal and interest and those kind of things. So really easy to do. This is all maintaining one record as well. So you can come in at any point in time, revise your livestock values, revise your land values, change the dates you're viewing this on, and view your financial position as at different times. Down the bottom, some simple analysis of this. So, what our equity ratio is, what our working capital, and what our current ratio as well. So a few key things that we know all bankers look for before they really go down the path of processing finance applications and those kind of things. Reports, obviously, we're quite a powerful management reporting application, can collect a lot of data. It's important that we get those kind of things out of there. So what underpins a lot of this is in our planning grid when we are building out our budget. Once we've got a budget that we're pretty happy with, we've got the ability to save a copy of that budget or any subsequent reforecast of that budget as well with concept we've got called snapshots. So when I'm happy with this, I can take a snapshot, I can give it a name. This might be a June reforecast or something like that, for example. Give it a description, why would we reforecast, and we can save this. What that does is it creates a comparison point that we can come back to, and we can look at where we are now versus where we thought we were going to be 6 months ago, 12 months ago, whatever it might be. All of that data is all referenceable in our reports. The standard reports that you can imagine we have are P&L, cash flow and balance sheet, being financially minded application. Our reports can include comparison periods, so you can compare this year versus last year or this year versus next year, all that kind of stuff as well. We can include quantities on the reports. So if you need to share some assumptions back, we can do that as well. Let's just let this run. So you can see that my $125,000 worth of revenue there is for 500 tonnes and so on and so forth. Once I've got a report I'm happy with, I can save a copy of it. Spin. And then I can go through and I can highlight anything, and I can also add my comments as well. So I can say, are you sure? Add some questions, add my comments, and then I can print this to PDF with all my comments appearing as footnotes. More importantly, and the way we see most people use it is I can click the share button, add in some email addresses, and drop these out with my notes and that kind of stuff. So if you've got to share this information like out to family boards, other farm stakeholders, farm managers, all those kind of things that you have to do as part of the financial management, really easy thing to do. Some of the other reports that you can see in there, our statement of position. So it's the official report of the financial position we were just doing. You can run that at multiple dates and you can see the change between dates, which is really handy. Got some production reports, which will show some of those things like per DSE, per kilo, per hectare, per ton kind of reporting. Some tracker reports. These are great accompaniments to our budget quite often. So if I can run off a cropping report, it shows all our movements, for example, or I can run off our sheep report. And in here, it's going to show things like what's our average kilos per head, dollars per head, or dollars per kilo over the life of the year. So we can analyze these kind of things really quickly and make sure we're in line with our expectations. Pause there for questions. I think we've rocketed through this. I'm happy to take questions from anyone that are online, or we can always do a bit of a follow-up if needed.
Thanks, Jimmy. Yeah, while we wait for questions to come through, if they do, one point that you did make there, and I guess you could talk to this from a figured perspective, is you were talking about how you've got newish features in there, brand new features, and I'm assuming you've got features in the pipeline. That's one thing that we like about the cloud, and just with Xero and products like yours, is the fact that you're not buying a particular product that you download. Back in the olden days, you would have got a CD, but now you just you download it and put it on your desktop, whereas this is in a browser. So
exactly right, yeah.
Yeah, so you're continually looking to improve it. Is there anything,
yes.
I don't want you to give away any trade secrets, can you highlight what you have introduced or what you might be looking to provide?
So major things for us are at the moment, the statement of position is a really important feature. So adding more power and flexibility into that is a really important focus at the moment. We're always looking at making it, simpler and easier and more intuitive to use, more accessible for people. We have the ability to release much more frequently than an offline, app or anything like that. So I think last year we did about 850 product updates or something like that. So it's numerous times a day that things are being updated in the app. Sometimes they're large features. We've recently completely redone the livestock tracker to make that a lot more intuitive to use, add a bit more power into it. But often a lot of those updates, they're just, little things, they're styling changes, they're bug fixes and that kind of stuff. So if there's something you don't necessarily like or something's not working, you're not waiting months or even years for it to be addressed. Those kind of things can be fixed very quickly. So a very agile company in that respect. From that as well, we're able to, implement new features very quickly and iterate on them as well. So we tend not to save everything up and build things in one huge lump. What we have the ability to do instead is really release things, as they're complete. So we tend to release things in stages as well.
Okay, and that all just comes as part of your standard subscription as well. So you're not needing to buy a new release.
No, exactly right. Yeah, so it's a monthly fee, and you'll open up Figured, every day. If it's a major release, you'll be prompted that there's been a new feature added or something else there, or those kind of things. But a really important thing for us is also capturing the feedback and iterating on features for our customers' benefits. So one of the things that we really like is within Figured, we've got the ability to collect customer feedback. So just down the bottom corner here, we've got give feedback button. In there, you can see what's been requested. You can vote for features and these kind of things as well. You can see what people have commented on as well, this kind of stuff. You can see, what's trending at the moment, what's top. You can see what is, planned as part of our current roadmap, or what we're assessing. And the best thing about this from our perspective, and what our users really like as well, is when we do a bit of a revamp or an improvement on a section, we'll try and address as many of the things in here as we can. And then if you have voted for something, then you'll be notified. So quite often we'll do an update. We'll go through here and we'll say, this has been resolved. Now these 10 people that have voted for this item, they get a little email that says, by the way, this has been addressed this morning. You've now got the ability to run this report on this basis, or enter data in this way, or something like that. So very much a product that's driven by our user community that we're really proud of.
That's pretty cool, especially this day and age. Actually having that personal interaction with the providers, quite unique. One of the things that I've seen over the last couple of years with your solution is the introduction of the trackers. That was released about a year ago, wasn't it?
So we've always had trackers, but they've certainly evolved. So we've had some simplistic trackers, then had more advanced ones added in. They solve a variety of purposes. So the more advanced ones are certainly where people are heading, but it really depends on the cost pressures that a business is under, the appetite for that kind of information. Often it's generational as well. So might have a farm going through succession. Outgoing owners just want to keep things the way they are, so we can do it for that time. But a new generation coming in wanting a little bit more of an understanding about things, maybe under a different debt position or something like that as well. So there's a bit more cost pressure on there. So we're certainly being led with the new generation of farmers that are coming in. We're being led to much more stricter controls around gross margin, overall profitability, utilization of assets and those kind of things. So that's where we're really being guided. That said, the average age of the farmer in Australia is still 60 something. So we have to deal with both markets realistically.
Yeah, cool. And I know that we've talked about APIs today. So they're the parts of the software that allow different systems to connect. You've had APIs in the past with AgWorld and AgriWeb, I believe.
So we had a couple of beta integrations with them. The AgWorld one is where with our new gross margin crop tracker, the powerful crop tracker, I suppose is the best way to describe it. We're working with AgWorld to stitch that in comprehensively with them. Really bringing through a lot of detail from AgWorld, matching it with a equivalent level of detail in Figured. So that's in the work at the moment. It takes a long time to stitch these kind of things together, but that'll be out later this year. And certainly we've got the power to do those kind of things. So we, like Xero, we have an API. We have people coming to us and saying, can we integrate with you? So it's just a matter of time before more things happen. But realistically, that's where that user feedback section comes in as well. So if there's a particular app that we're seeing more people requesting that we integrate with, then we've got a global head of partnerships, which picks up that conversation and then explores the joint opportunities between companies. And look, that's really the spirit of this. We want to be really good at what we do, and that's farm financial management. We're not going to be doing animal health records or something like that because someone else does that better than us. Similarly, we're never going to be doing bank reconciliation or payroll because Xero does it better than us as well. So it's really about everyone understanding what they add individually, but then collectively the tech stack that you end up with ends up being greater than the sum of its parts realistically, and something that suits your business inherently as well, rather than paying for a bunch of features that you aren't going to use, which is not uncommon with some of the traditional packages. You're able to just use the features that you need and then integrate potentially with something else that adds significant value to your business.
Yeah, very good. All right, well, I think that does us for question time. So thanks very much, Jimmy. I might move on to wrapping up. So if I could have my screen back, there we go. Now, so that's Figured in a nutshell. So we'll be sharing this this video via a YouTube link later on. So there's a lot to take in there. If you need to revisit it, you can. Otherwise, you can get in there and reach out to Jimmy and his team. Have always been very helpful from my perspective. We've just got a summary of the pricing there. So Xero has multiple levels based on the features you need. As I mentioned, Hubdock comes part of the Xero platform, and Figured, I believe, I've got the pricing right there, Jimmy, and chime in if I need to fix that. As you can see there, RSM does have some discounted pricing on its products just because of our partner relationship. Our client relationships are very important to us, so we don't keep that margin on the discount. We pass that straight on to our clients. We've just done a quick calculation. Depending on the level of Xero subscription you'd need, you're looking at somewhere between $946 and $1,216. The key thing there is how many employees you've got in your business. From what I understand of the jig of other platforms like Agrimaster and Phoenix, if you're going to their live version, these prices aren't too dissimilar. Great thing that Jimmy pointed out is you can manage the number of users that you want in the file because it's done on a per business or per farm basis. What about my historical data? We've worked closely with a lot of farming clients to help bring across 5 years of previous data. Usually those are the bank transactions. So that means that you can use Xero to search previous transactions with with your suppliers and your customers, etc. So you will have it easily at hand in one platform. So that brings me to how can we help? Look, we are happy to work with clients however they choose to work with us, but we feel like this is a really exciting development in how you can work. We've talked about how you can declutter your life, find time by automating some of the data entry, etc. We can help you assess whether this is the right thing for you. So for a fixed upfront amount, we can perform a review of how you use your current software, run that conversion, extract reports so you've got that permanent record, set up the software suited to your needs, and bring in your opening balances from your financial statements and your current cash book. Convert the budgets that you've prepared, say in your software that you've got at the moment, into Figured. Help you with getting comfortable with the software. That's probably one of the most biggest causes of anxiety, especially trying something new. The key is to remember that all the functions are just the same. You just got to find what you do somewhere else. So reconcile your bank here, manage your bills here, check in as we go, and provide insights as what else can plug in to make your life easier going forward. So just reach out if you're interested, and we can help you make the move. So we've already run through the questions with Jimmy from a Figured perspective. Always happy to take questions offline in relation to Xero and Hubdock, and the team's always willing to just help you take any anxiety out of your life or address any questions you might have. So thank you very much for your time today, and wish you well on this Wednesday afternoon, and look forward to speaking with you soon. Take care.